I knew something was wrong the second I walked into the ballroom. The chandeliers were dripping with gold light, the kind of expensive glow that hides the cracks in everything underneath. White linens, overpriced floral arrangements, champagne flowing like it was water. It was supposed to be a celebration of our company's success. My success. 11 years of building the analytics division into something real, profitable and respected. But as I stood there in my black dress, clutching a glass of bubbly that tasted faintly of regret, I felt the atmosphere shift. Too many eyes on me. Too many whispers curling around the room like smoke. And then, like the villain in a bad corporate fairy tale, our CEO, Richard Calloway, strutted onto the stage. Richard loved a spotlight. He loved nothing more than hearing his own voice echo through expensive speakers while people nodded like disciples. Tonight, he had gone all out. A branded stage backdrop, a live band playing Coldplay covers, and fog machines. Yes, fog machines at a corporate gala. Because nothing says integrity like artificial mist. He raised his glass, his teeth so white they practically glowed in the dim light. Tonight, he began, we celebrate not just our numbers but our transformation. A new era of efficiency, a bold new chapter I should have known then. Efficiency. That word always hides the knife. And then it came. He paused, smirked, and pointed toward me. Starting with her termination. For a second, the room froze. Then, like some sick cue, laughter rippled through the audience. Executives chuckled, VPs smirked, and even a few of my peers, the ones I trained, clapped. My badge deactivated instantly, the silent confirmation of my execution. I bit my tongue so hard I could taste iron. My nails dug crescents into my palm. I refused to give him the satisfaction of a reaction. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to scream. I stood there as if carved from stone while he moved on, already talking about innovation pipelines and agile synergies, like I had never even existed. The humiliation burned, but the betrayal? That cut deeper. I'd given over a decade to this company. Late nights, weekends, holidays sacrificed to keep this place afloat. And this was how they erased me. Publicly, cruelly, efficiently. And then, my phone buzzed. At first, I thought it was another automated HR notification. Maybe an email confirming my health insurance was gone. But when I glanced down at the screen, my breath caught. It was a text. From a number I knew. Marcus Hale, the top investor in the company. A man who rarely even acknowledged my presence unless it was about quarterly reports. The message was short, precise. Are you free? Let's end his career. For the first time that evening, I almost smiled. I didn't leave immediately. I let the humiliation play out. Let Richard enjoy his little performance. But inside, something was shifting. The numbness cracked, replaced by something sharper. Purpose. I slipped out of the ballroom just as the fog machines hissed again, my heels echoing against marble. Outside, the night air hit me like a slap. Cold, clean, grounding. My carry-on bag felt heavier than usual, though I hadn't even packed it. When you've been betrayed like that, in front of peers and strangers alike, something inside you hardens. You stop caring about decorum. You stop caring about survival mode. What's left is focus. I leaned against a stone pillar, pulled out my phone again, and stared at Marcus's message. End his career. I thought about Richard's smirk, about the way people clapped when I was dismissed like a line item in a spreadsheet, about Jenny, my assistant, who had been crying quietly behind her champagne glass, about the years of building something real, only to be discarded in the name of efficiency. And I thought, maybe it's time someone taught Richard what efficiency really looks like. I typed back 2 words. I'm in. Within minutes, Marcus's assistant sent me an address. Not a boardroom, not a fancy restaurant, but a quiet townhouse 3 blocks away from the Gala. Marcus never wasted time. If he wanted me there, it meant something big. I didn't look back at the ballroom. Didn't glance at the lights, the music, The people who had just erased me. Let them toast their new era. They had no idea the storm that was already brewing. As I walked toward that townhouse, my phone buzzed again. Another message, this time from Jenny. I'm with you. Always I stopped in my tracks. Jenny had been by my side for 5 years, loyal, precise, the kind of assistant who noticed everything. If she was still in, if she was willing to take the risk, then maybe I wasn't as alone as Richard wanted me to believe. I pocketed the phone and kept walking. The night smelled faintly of rain and smoke. The city hummed with its usual indifference. But inside me, the fire was just beginning to catch. Richard thought he had humiliated me into silence. He thought I'd fade into the background, another casualty of corporate realignment. But he had underestimated me. Because efficiency, real efficiency, is burning down a liar's empire with nothing but receipts and precision. And by the time I reached Marcus Hale's door, I already knew. Richard had just fired the wrong woman. Marcus Hale did not look like the kind of man who sent nuclear texts. He opened the townhouse door in a navy sweater and reading glasses, like a professor grading papers on a Sunday. No entourage, no security, just a single lamp on and a kettle steaming in the kitchen. I stepped inside, closed the door, and waited for the performance. There wasn't one. I'm sorry you were humiliated, he said. No theatrics, no handshake. Sit. I sat. My hands were steady. My heart wasn't. He poured tea, not whiskey. It felt deliberate, like he was setting the tone. Calm, slow, controlled. You know why you're here, he said. Because you sent a text that sounds like a felony. His mouth twitched. Because he lied to a room I pay for? I didn't answer. The humiliation from the gala still clung to me like smoke. Marcus set 2 folders on the coffee table. I'm not asking you to steal corporate property or hack anything, he said. We'll do this clean. Legal. You will not access systems you no longer have rights to. You will not ask anyone to break policy. You will not record anyone without consent in a one-party state. You're giving the rules speech, I said. I'm giving you cover, he replied. If this goes forward, it will end in auditors and regulators. We don't feed them tainted fruit. He opened the first folder, printed screenshots, not originals. Analyst notes, public filings, earnings call transcripts lined with yellow highlights. On the last page, a press photo of Richard standing in front of a slide labeled Novaline, Q to launch. I sat on the prototype committee, I said. There is no Q2 launch. I know, he said, but he told the street there is. He's been promising a product he can't ship to preserve a multiple he doesn't deserve. You were the last person in leadership who would say that out loud. There it was, plain English, not a vendetta, evaluation. You want me to blow the whistle? I said. I want the truth, he said. And I want it in a format that stands up in a room full of lawyers. I looked at the second folder. It was empty. That one is yours, he said. Populate it with what you remember. Timelines, meetings, who was in the room when deadlines moved, any roadblocks you documented. Memory is admissible when it's annotated and corroborated. You were there. That matters. I don't have access anymore. I'm not asking for access, he said. I'm asking for a reconstruction. People forget that paper trails aren't just PDFs. They're calendars, slide templates, stand-up notes, vendor RFPs, procurement approvals, even travel itineraries. All of that can be requested later, if you flag what to look for. He slid over a legal card. If you proceed, you'll speak only through counsel. Attorney-client privilege applies from now. He paused. And Anna, don't text me about this again. Use the number on the card. Landline. Calls only Jenny, I said before I could stop myself. My assistant. She's still inside. She'll help, within policy. He nodded like he already knew. Then tell her to protect herself. No printing, no forwarding, no screenshots. She can keep a contemporaneous journal, dates and who told her what. That's legal. That's powerful. I studied him. Why me? Because you built what he's selling, he said, and because you're angry enough to do it right. I didn't trust that compliment, but I understood it. We laid out a plan that felt like a grocery list written in lawyer ink. I would draft a timeline from memory. Product milestones, revenue claims tied to Novaline, slips where Pilot was rebranded as Launch. Marcus's analysts would parallel it against public guidance. We'd identify individuals to interview later. Engineering managers who killed features, sales leaders who lost accounts, finance staff who reclassified churn. If something smelled off, it would go on a list for subpoenas, not Slack DMs. 3 weeks, Marcus said. That's what I think he has before he tries to push a deal. If this is real, we need to be ready before he hands a bomb to someone else. 3 weeks is not a lot of time, I said. It's enough to be credible, he answered. Credibility moves faster than spin. He stood, signaling the meeting was over. Leave the folder. Pick it up tomorrow at the coffee shop on 53rd at 10. Ask for newspaper. Cute, I said. Old, he corrected. I stepped back into the night feeling oddly sober. Not righteous, careful. This wasn't a movie. This was a process, and processes don't clap when you make the right choice. They ask for proof. Jenny called me as I turned the corner. Where are you? She whispered. Walking, I said. Listen. From now on, nothing digital that you wouldn't want read aloud in a deposition. If you see something, write it down in a paper notebook. Dates, times. Who said what? Old school, she asked. Admissible, I said. She exhaled. They're rewriting the Novaline roadmap, she said. Marketing updated the internal wiki to say, launch window. Engineering still has no QA builds, and Richard scheduled a town hall for Monday topic. Our path to efficiency, she said, and I could hear the eye roll. Anna, are we really doing this? We're documenting, I said, and we're protecting you. I went home, pulled the second folder onto my kitchen table, and started drawing a line down a page. What was promised on the left, what existed on the right. My handwriting was slow at first, then faster as the dates kicked loose. March, prototype freeze missed. April, sales demo was a Figma mock. May, finance removed experimental tag from Novaline revenue and called it expansion. I remembered the meeting. Richard had framed it as aligning with market perception. I wrote the phrase exactly as he said it because words are fingerprints. At 1:13 a.m., I stopped and read the page. It didn't look like revenge. It looked like work I'd been doing for years. Clearing fog, naming things. The quiet kind of courage no one applauds. I tucked the notes into the empty folder and sealed it with a strip of tape I found in a junk drawer. Before bed, I texted Jenny one sentence. Paper only. You're not alone. As I turned off the light, a thought surfaced that I didn't push away. Richard had called my termination an era of efficiency. He wasn't wrong. Efficiency is doing the next necessary thing without flinching. In the morning, I would start asking questions the right way. And if the answers pointed where I thought they would, we wouldn't need theatrics or fog machines. We'd have the truth. And a clock. I arrived at the coffee shop on 53rd exactly at 10. The place smelled like burnt espresso and impatience. A barista with a nose ring glanced up when I ordered and handed me a small brown bag. Inside, beneath a muffin I didn't order, was the folder I'd left at Marcus's townhouse. My notes were still there, but now they were typed, formatted, and cross-referenced against public statements. His analysts had wasted no time. Next to each milestone I had listed, prototype freeze, demo dates, revenue classifications, there were highlights in red. Inconsistent with public guidance. Contradicted by earnings call. No supporting documentation filed with SEC. They were building the skeleton of a case. All I had to do was keep giving them bones. That night, I met Jenny in a strip mall diner 2 towns over. She wore a baseball cap pulled low, her hair tucked away like she was in witness protection. She ordered chamomile tea but didn't drink it. "They're scrubbing mentions of Novaline," she said. "Internal wiki, project trackers, even Slack channels. Threads are disappearing mid-scroll. It's like someone is airbrushing history while we watch." "Dates?" I asked. "Yesterday afternoon, right after the gala, I wrote it down in my notebook. Day after termination, records scrubbed." Jenny leaned closer. "It's not just deletions. They're moving credits too. I saw your name taken off 3 milestone reviews, replaced with corporate co-author." My jaw tightened. Erasure wasn't new in business, but seeing it happen in real time was different. "Back it up," I said. I did. Flash drive, she slid a small black stick across the table like contraband. "Encrypted." Triple-checked, I tucked it into my bag without looking. Evidence wasn't dramatic. It was tedious, careful, boring, and that's why it mattered. Over the next week, my days became a cycle of calls and notes. I reached out to people I hadn't spoken to in years, former colleagues who had left suddenly or quietly. Some hung up, some ignored me, but a few answered. Rita, a product lead, laughed bitterly when I asked about her departure. They told me I couldn't adapt to the agile vision. Translation, I questioned why we were promising features we hadn't even scoped. Evan, an analyst, said HR had found inconsistencies in his code after he refused to massage the forecast. "One day I was a rising star," he said. "Next day I was escorted out with a box." Funny thing, my forecast turned out to be right. Too right. Patterns emerged, the same words repeated like a script. Misalignment, redundancy, not culture fit. Euphemisms for dissent. By the 5th call, I had a page full of phrases that weren't just stories. They were evidence of a culture. A culture where questioning the fantasy meant you vanished. Jenny kept feeding me small pieces. An old budget draft that showed experimental revenue relabeled as growth. Meeting invites for product demos that never happened. One night she called, her voice shaking. "They caught me printing," she whispered. "Caught how?" "The system logs every job. I told them it was a duplicate of HR tax forms. They let it slide, but someone's watching." I closed my eyes, felt the heat behind them. "No more printing," I said. "Paper only from memory. Notes you can defend. No trails they can twist." She hesitated. "Anna, if they find out..." "They won't," I said. "Because we're not stealing. We're documenting silence." "Then, okay. But I'm scared." "So am I admitted. "That's why we're careful." The next day, Marcus called. His tone was as calm as always, but I could hear the undercurrent of urgency. "We've matched your notes against 2/4 of filings. The discrepancies are significant. Enough for questions, maybe subpoenas." "Significant isn't enough," I said. "It has to be undeniable." "Then keep going," he said. "The deeper he digs to cover himself, the easier he'll be to bury." That night, I opened Jenny's flash drive on my old Dell laptop. The screen flickered like a smoker's cough, but the files opened. Spreadsheets, draft presentations, metadata showing edits after midnight. My name stamped on documents I hadn't touched. I stared at the screen, a slow rage crawling up my throat. This wasn't just betrayal. This was identity theft. My reputation used as camouflage for lies. At 2:14 a.m., I picked up my notebook and wrote in block letters. "This is fraud." I didn't feel triumph. I felt cold, steady. The kind of clarity you only get when there's no way back. I called Marcus in the morning. He answered on the first ring. "I'm in," I said. "And he's dumber than I thought." "Good," Marcus replied. "Then it's time to start collecting kindling." For the first time in days, I almost smiled, because Richard thought efficiency meant cutting people like me. But I was about to show him a different kind of efficiency, the kind that dismantles an empire piece by piece until all that's left is smoke. By the second week, the pattern wasn't a suspicion anymore. It was a map. Every falsified milestone, every inflated projection, every erased credit pointed in one direction. Richard. He wasn't just exaggerating. He was building a castle on sand and selling tickets for the tour. Marcus called me one night while I was sitting at my kitchen table, surrounded by notebooks. "He's pitching investors," he said. "Not the board. Outsiders. Rumors say he's trying to package Novaline as proof of growth before a sale." "How soon?" 3 weeks, maybe less." 3 weeks. That was our deadline. The idea of Richard walking away with a golden parachute while employees got gutted in a merger made my stomach turn. If we wanted to stop him, we needed more than whispers and patterns. We needed a confession, or something close enough to look like one. That's when Marcus laid out the trap. "We'll bait him with validation," he said. "A fake investor, a clean front. You join as consultant. He won't be able to resist bragging about Novaline to outsiders." It sounded insane, risky, but realistic. Richard thrived on admiration. If someone waved the promise of money and prestige, he'd talk himself into a corner. 2 days later, Verdant Axis existed. On paper, it was a boutique analytics investment firm with sustainable branding, a Delaware filing, and a LinkedIn page polished enough to fool anyone skimming fast. They even hired a compliance expert to script the meeting invites, and I was listed as business development consultant. Subtle, forgettable. Jenny helped with the cover. She borrowed a ring light from her cousin so I could look polished on Zoom, and she mocked up a fake background that looked like a WeWork in Tribeca. Plants, exposed brick, the whole thing. The call was set for Tuesday at 2 p.m. I didn't sleep the night before. When Richard's face appeared on the screen, I kept mine neutral. Professional, distant. He didn't recognize me. Or maybe he refused to. Men like him convince themselves their enemies disappear once they're out of sight. He launched into his pitch immediately. "We're seeing over 60% growth quarter over quarter in our new vertical," he bragged. "Novaline is driving interest in Tier 2 markets, reducing churn, and creating substantial engagement." I let him go. He spoke like a man in love with his own slides, confident, smug, detached from reality. He name-dropped Fortune 500 clients under NDA, hinted at partnerships that never existed, and described APIS as active when engineering hadn't even assigned a single ticket. It was everything we needed, and every word was being recorded. When the call ended, my hands didn't shake. My heart didn't race. I felt nothing. Not anger, not grief, just focus. It wasn't personal anymore. It was arithmetic, a fraud equation solving itself. I forwarded the recording to Marcus with one word: done. 5 minutes later, he called back. "We've got him. SEC grade evidence. If we drop this at the right moment, he doesn't just lose his job. He loses everything." "Not yet," I said. There was a pause. "Why not?" "Because he's still running," I said. "And I want him to trip before we pull the rug." Marcus chuckled, low and sharp. "Fair enough." That night, Jenny called in a panic. They're shredding paper on the 4th floor, whole carts of documents, and someone flagged my badge for audit. They know something's leaking. I gripped the phone tighter. "Jenny, listen to me. You're done. No more risks. Stay clean. They'll sniff around, but they won't find anything. You've done enough." Her voice cracked. "But we don't have everything yet." "We have enough," I said firmly. "And I need you safe." There was silence, then a shaky exhale. "Okay." After we hung up, I stared at my laptop. The recording sat there like a loaded weapon, neat and undeniable. But Marcus was right. Timing mattered. If we moved too soon, Richard would spin it. If we waited, he'd hang himself with his own rope. 2 weeks left. I poured myself a glass of water and sat by the window, looking at the city lights. For years, I'd believed in the work. Believed that numbers told the truth if you measured them right. Now I knew better. Numbers could lie. People could weaponize them. But people could also use them to expose the lie. Efficiency. Richard had turned the word into a weapon against me. But as I sat there, calm and clear, I realized what efficiency really was. Not fog machines, not slogans, not public firings. Efficiency was this: gathering the right pieces, building the case, and waiting for the exact second to strike. And when that second came, Richard Calloway wouldn't just fall. He'd collapse under the weight of his own invention. The call came on a Thursday morning, 2 weeks after the sting. Marcus didn't waste words. 6 p.m. emergency session. Counsel present. Bring your timeline. Assume nothing you say is off the record. Is Richard invited? He's leading it, Marcus said. For now. I arrived early with 2 binders and a notebook. No drama, no hero's entrance, just a woman who'd done her homework. The boardroom was colder than it needed to be. Walnut table, bottled water lined like soldiers. Outside the glass, New York did what it always does. Kept moving. Richard came in wearing a suit the color of denial. He nodded at me like we were still colleagues and not on opposite sides of a fault line. He opened with charm. He always did. Let's not lose the plot because of one anonymous tape, he said, smiling tight. We're executing. Novaline is in development. Any language that sounds aggressive was investor enthusiasm. Marcus didn't look at him. He looked at counsel, who pressed a button on a small speaker. My careful voice asked, how soon could an investor leverage Novaline's data pipelines? Richard's answer filled the room. Confident, specific, indefensible. A PIS active growth. North of 60%. Partners under NDA. Lies that sounded like leadership. I didn't watch Richard's face. I watched the board. Blink, blink, then stillness. Elaine, the director who never wasted a breath, folded her hands. Anna, she said, walk us through the timeline. I did. No speeches, no adjectives, just dates, meetings, phrases repeated word for word. Prototype freeze missed. Sales demo was a mock. Experimental revenue relabeled as expansion. Credits reassigned after my termination. I cited who was in the room and who could corroborate. When I finished, I slid the second binder forward. The crosswalk Marcus's analysts had built against public statements. Counsel spoke next. We recommend a legal hold across all systems immediately. Email, Slack, shared drives. No data deletion, no device wipes, no travel beyond normal course. Mr. Calloway, you will surrender your laptop and phone at the end of this meeting. Richard laughed. It didn't land. This is ridiculous. It's routine, counsel said. And necessary. The board voted, not termination, not yet. They placed him on administrative leave, effective immediately, and appointed an independent firm to begin a forensic review over the weekend. HR would notify the company in the morning. No fog machines, no band, just a motion, a second, and a unanimous show of hands. Outside the building, the air felt different. Thin, truthful. Jenny texted me a single emoji, a flame, then a stop sign. We lit it. Now hold the line. Friday was quiet in the loud way crisis is. IT locked accounts. A firm with a name like a law office installed e-discovery tools. Finance put the experimental label back where it belonged. Legal sent out a memo. Preserve everything. No one said my name out loud, but people knew. I bought a cheap sandwich and ate half of it. My stomach was busy. On Monday morning, an 8K hit the wire. CEO on leave pending investigation. Board cooperating with regulators. Guidance under review. The stock dipped, then steadied. Not confidence, exactly, but caution. Richard scheduled a personal statement at a co-working space with brick walls and moral support. It lasted 7 minutes. Reporters asked what active APIs meant if engineering had no tickets. He blamed timelines in flux. He left with his tie in his pocket. Inside the company, people did what people do in uncertainty. They clung to the nearest adult. Teams pinged managers for direction. HR put together talking points with the emotional range of a toaster. Jenny sent me a photo of a whiteboard in a conference room. No more slides until we have something to demo. Underneath, someone wrote, Amen. Tuesday night, the board reconvened. The independent firm presented preliminary findings: revenue reclassification without adequate disclosure, deck edits that overstated pipeline, internal objections documented and overridden. My name was on some of those objections. So were others who'd left. It wasn't a single mistake. It was a pattern. Counsel cleared her throat. We have sufficient grounds for termination for cause. The room went very quiet. Marcus didn't look triumphant. He looked tired. Elaine spoke last. Mr. Calloway, this is the end of your employment. Effective immediately. For cause. No severance. Your equity is subject to clawback pending final findings. Security will escort you out after you sign the acknowledgement. He didn't make a scene. He didn't beg. He just nodded like a man who could finally hear the click of a door he'd been closing on himself for months. He left. The board turned to me. We need a grown-up to stabilize the floor, Elaine said. 75 days, chief restructuring officer, limited mandate, transparency, guardrails, retention. After that, a proper search. It wasn't victory. It was a job. I took it. The next morning, I stood in front of a room that used to scare me and told the truth. No music, no fog. There's no Novaline launch next quarter, I said. We're not going to pretend otherwise. We're going to fix what's real and stop selling what isn't. If you have receipts, good or bad, bring them. No one gets punished for telling the truth. I restored credits on 3 projects, including my own, then added names that had been erased before mine. We issued retention grants to engineers and analysts who'd been asked to do magic tricks with numbers. I met with finance and told them clarity beats optimism. I met with legal and told them cooperation beats posture. I met with Jenny and told her she could sleep. When she cried, it wasn't dramatic. It was relief leaving the body. By week 3, the building felt different. Not fixed, just honest. The board hired an external CEO with a boring resume and a spine. I handed over the keys with a clean inbox and a list of things that still needed saying out loud. They offered me a permanent role. I said no. I didn't want a throne. I wanted my life back. Before I left, Jenny brought me one last envelope. A stack of old patent filings with the right names in the right places. Mine included. They were filed, she said. He tried to strip them. He didn't get to finish. I walked out of the building into air that didn't taste like smoke anymore. The city went on, indifferent and honest. I thought about the word that started all of this. Efficiency. Richard wielded it like a weapon. But efficiency without integrity is just speed toward a cliff. The shortest path to the truth is still the straight line. Dates, facts, names, receipts. If you've ever been erased, write it down. If you've ever been told to make the numbers sing, ask who's picking the song. And if someone fires you for telling the truth, remember there's a clean way to write yourself back in. I didn't get revenge. I got the record corrected. And sometimes that's the louder ending.